the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence. Spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Anxious earth is rising. Anxious earth is rising. I'm so happy.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Are you? What? No wonder. How did that get in there? What? Oh, hey, Double Tribble here. Hi. This is a Double Tribble channel. How are you? My name is Ron. I live in New Hampshire. I'm surrounded by forests and a bunch of wild animals and stuff. It's pretty cool. And I stream about science and a lot of different stuff. Animals, vegan stuff, anything. Today is April 28th, 2025, and it's 10:40, 10 minutes after I was supposed to start. It took me 3 times to get this, so let me make sure this is actually working now, because I did have some technical difficulties, but I think I got them ironed out. So first thing I got to do is I got to check to make sure that everything is in sync. So the way I do that is I clap, and then I listen to myself on another computer and see if it comes out all right. So we'll try that. Ready? Oh, it seemed like it was a little bit delayed there, wasn't it? Let's try that again here. All right, I gotta keep the volume down here until I do this. Shh, shh, shh. You know what? That's close enough. I don't know.
That's close enough.
If it's off, the problem is that if it gets off when you're talking, then that can kind of be irritating. You know, when somebody's talking and the voice is off by just a little bit, it can be kind of annoying. To me, it is anyway. I think it's pretty close though. Let me get a little closer here. The rain in Spain falls mainly in the plain.
Spain falls mainly in the plain.
Yeah, that's pretty. I don't know. That's close enough. I don't think you can notice that. All right. So what was I going to do today? I was going to do. I called this Corrigenda for those things, puzzles and paradoxes. I'm not sure what. I think there was one paradox that I had, one and two puzzles. So I don't know. But the Corrigenda, I've got. When you do streams, and you do them live, and you don't plan them out like I do. I don't plan out very much. I try to do a little bit of planning, but I don't. Anyway, it a lot of times I get things wrong, and occasionally I try to get them right. But I misspeak. Or something happens and I just get things wrong. So I thought I would do. Okay, I'll do a Corrigenda. Corrigendum is the singular. Corrigendum is a piece of paper that if you get a pamphlet or a book or something like that, and they made a mistake and it's already been printed and it's too late to reprint it or too expensive or whatever, so they stick a page in there or two or whatever. Let's say, okay, on page such and such, it should have said this and it said that. So, and it lists all the mistakes. That's what a corrigendum is. But I had three or more streams here that I wanted to talk about. So you use the plural, corrigenda. That's what that word means. And you know what? My spell checker is telling me that's not spelled right. But I think it is. I looked it up in my dictionary. It looks like it said that was spelled correctly, but my spell checker is telling me that it's not spelled correctly. So I don't know. I can try. I guess I can open up my browser here and ask Google. See what Google says about it. Corrigen. Oh wait, I gotta ask it to spell it. Spell. Corrigenda. All right, let me bring it. I'll see if I can bring this up. And capture. Window capture. There we go. So it says the correct spelling for the plural of corrigendum is corrigenda. And that's how I spelled it in the title. Right? Corrigenda. Yeah, that's spelled right. So I don't know. I don't understand why that is. Maybe it's just a weird, unusual word or something. Maybe that's what it is. It's just kind of rare or whatever. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to correct mistakes. And a good thing I didn't spell corrigenda wrong, or else I'd have to do a corrigendum for corrigenda. Spelling a corrigendum. That's what I was worried about. That happens all the time, right? When you're correcting somebody's grammar or something like that, and there's a rule that says that when you do that, you'll make a mistake yourself. It's kind of funny. It's one of those meta things. Let me see if I'm still in sync, even though I did that. Open my browser.
I'm still in sync, even though I did that. Open my browser.
Yeah, it seems to be okay. All right, so we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so I wanted to go through some. I did 3 different streams here. Let me see if I can find my recent streams. Let's see here, because I did three. Well, yeah, I did a stream on my review of Cloud Atlas, and I did a stream on. Well, it was a whole bunch of things that I did a stream on, but it was one of the things that I did in that stream was to talk about what if you fell through a hole in the earth. You know, if there's a hole all the way through the earth. Somebody asked me this while in the middle of a stream, and they said, "Oh, here's a question that I have about." I think it was Memlons. I forget who it was, but and they said, "Oh, what happens if you fall through a hole? If there's a hole all the way through the earth, what happens if you fall through it?" And it wasn't something that I was prepared, to do or anything. But so I just started talking about it, and when that happens, of course, you're going to get, you're going to have more mistakes, right? So let's see. It says here, view all recent broadcasts. All. Let's see what I did here. Did a test. Okay, it doesn't have it up here for some reason. Oh, it probably rolled off. It got too old, I guess. It was too long ago. But anyway, that was another thing that I wanted to talk about. And then there was another thing. I'll figure it out when I get there. But anyway, there's just some things I wanted to correct. So that's what that was about. So if you have not seen, I'll do the Cloud Atlas stuff first. We'll do that first. I did this huge review. If anybody's not familiar with Cloud Atlas, is a movie, a film that came out in 2012, and it was an experimental film, but it was a well-funded, over $100 million spent on an experimental film, which is unprecedented, But it was really cool. It's a really cool movie, but it's very difficult to understand, It's not one of those, real simple movies or B movie or whatever. That's it's very complicated. It has a complicated plot. It's an epic. It covers a big time span and all that kind of stuff. So what I did is I did a very detailed review of it. First I did a no spoilers review, which is kind of a cursory overview of it. But then I did a part 2 of that review, which was a detailed, really getting into the details of the movie and explaining stuff that people probably had questions about. But some of the things that I said, well, first of all, I forgot to say things that I was thinking about saying. I forgot to include those. And then I also, I made some statements that I figured out later on were not correct or whatever. I misspoke or whatever. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to correct those. So if you have not seen Cloud Atlas, there might be some spoilers in here. I'm not sure. Maybe not. I don't know. It would just be confusing to you probably. But that's okay. Right? I don't know. Because if you've not seen Cloud Atlas, there might be a spoiler in here somewhere. If I can think about it, I'll try to alert you if there is. So I did this review, and I said that in the first, there's a story at the very beginning. Maybe I should put some pictures up here. Maybe I could do that to help people remember. No, that's okay. So at the beginning of the thing, at the beginning of the story, the first story that they talk about is in 1849. There's 6 stories in this movie. The first one is in 1849. And they had slavery in 1849, and that's kind of what was one of the central topics of that, was slavery and how the protagonist in that particular story switched from being somebody who supported slavery to somebody who became an abolitionist. And I made a statement in there that they were using Darwin's ideas to justify their slavery, Hang on, I'll take a drink here. Yeah, somebody asked if I ever use a measuring cup when I cook. I don't use a measuring cup when I cook, but I do use a measuring cup occasionally when if I drink my hot chocolate. It's pretty handy. And it's anyway, it's big, and I don't have any mugs, so. All right, so That's what I said. I said, oh, they were using Darwin's, survival of the fittest and all this to justify their racism and their slavery and all that. But I don't think that was true. I mean, it's a narrative, right? They didn't really say. They talked about some writings that were written by one of the characters in the movie, but I don't think they specifically called out any real life writers to justify that I can remember, to try to justify it. So the movie took place in 1849, and Darwin developed his ideas in 1838, I think it was, or 39, something like that. But he was a geologist, and so his focus was on geology, but he just happened to, they were trying to figure out how old the Earth was and all this kind of stuff, and one of the things they were using to figure that out was old bones of animals. And anyway, so he figured out his idea of natural selection in 1838 or 1839 or around there, but he didn't publish it. He wrote it down and maybe talked about it a little bit, but with some of his friends or whatever, but he didn't really publish anything until about 20 years later, so that would be 1858 or 9 or 7 or whatever, somewhere in that time frame, whenever his book came out. So in 1849, most likely they would not have known about Darwin. And actually, those characters were relying on biblical texts. And at that time, the interpretation of biblical texts were that the earth was created in 6 days and that it was only 4,000 years old or 6,000 years old or something. And actually, people who were very religious at that time didn't like Darwin because he was rocking the boat, So what I said there was not correct. They were not. I don't think they were relying on Darwin's writings to justify their racism and all that bad stuff. So that's number one. That's the number one thing I wanted to correct. Something I stumbled upon when I was just researching this is something that's called civilized mission. Civilized mission, which I've never heard of before. I understood the concept, and Manifest Destiny was kind of part of that, which of course I heard of that. But this whole idea of civilized mission is the idea of, and I was familiar with the idea of going out. They wanted to go out to, justify their colonialism and oppression and conquering other people. You would say, "Oh, we're trying to civilize them." We're trying. To them, civilization was making people believe the same things they believed. And anybody who believed anything different was uncivilized. That was their thing. So anyway, I stumbled across that, and I thought I could mention that. That's probably the ideas that they were using at the time. Let's see. There was a whole section of this thing where I was talking about the literature and the writings and stuff like that in this movie. The way this movie worked is that there were these 6 different stories in 6 different time frames, and each, like the guy in this 1849 movie, he wrote a journal, and then the guy in the next one, in the 1936 story, got a copy of that journal and was reading it. So what it was doing is they were saying, people from the past, when they write stuff down, they influence people in the future, right? Duh. I mean, it's but they did it in a very cinematic way, and the narrative was pretty cool. The way they worked, the way they did it, But one of the things, and I mentioned all the different literature that I could think of that they were talking about when I did my review, but there were a couple here that I missed, or at least one that I missed here. And I actually wasn't aware of it when I did the review, but I found somebody else who had reviewed this thing and come up with this thing. There's a guy called Jose Saramago, and he wrote this thing. Let me see if I can bring this up here. I think I found a page that has his stuff on it. Yeah, here it is. Here's a Goodreads.com has a quote from him. Let me see if I can bring that up on the screen here. I don't know if that's, yeah, is that right? There we go. Trying to get me to sign up for something. Okay. So this guy here, can you read that there? Maybe I need to make that bigger. Huh? There we go. This guy, Jose Saramago, who I was not familiar with. I got dyslexia, so I don't... literature is not my thing, you know, obviously. But this guy apparently was his ideas or whatever were used in that story, in that particular narrative. That the one, this was the narrative in the 2144 narrative, which happened in this fictional place called Neo Seoul, which was Seoul, Seoul, Korea, in the future. And one of the they call them fabricants. This woman called Somni 451. She was like a figurehead for a revolution, and she had these revelations, she called them, just part of their manifesto or whatever, that she ended up broadcasting out. Anyway, some of the things she said were also in here, where it says our words and deeds go on apportioning themselves. One assumes in a reasonable, uniform, balanced way throughout the days, that follow. That she said that. She said something very close to that. Very basically paraphrased that, what this guy was saying. So anyway, that was kind of cool that I found that, and I didn't mention it because I wasn't aware of it when I did my review. But that's another piece of literature that got influenced into this thing. And I don't know if they were saying that this writing influenced the character of the story, or if this writing was just something that influenced the writer of Cloud Atlas, and he put that in there based on that. I'm not sure. They did. Of course, they didn't say that it was this guy. But anyway, so that was another thing that I wanted to mention as an addition. I know it's not really a correction, but it was an addition, something that I failed to mention because I wasn't aware of it. Also, I think I was mispronouncing Edinburgh. It's Edinburgh, Scotland, and it's not. I may have said Edinburgh because the way it's spelled, it's spelled Edinburgh. Let me see if I can put this up here. This would be cool if I can do this. I'm not sure if I can do it. Is that? No, that's not it. Okay, there's that. See, that's not what we want, is it? There we go. All right. Can you see that? I need to move that over a little bit. All right, there we go. All right, I should. All right, pronunciation of Edinburgh. Now, I was pronouncing it either Edinburgh or Edinburgh, and neither of those were. It's not. It's borough. It's like one syllable or something on the end. So anyway, I wanted to put that up there because that was just one of those things that I was. I have difficulty with pronunciation. I haven't had this much trouble with it, but as I age out, I think it's my whatever neurons I was using to self-correct that defect are starting to age, and they're not working so well. So I do much more have much more pronunciation errors than usual, Plus, I don't talk. I don't have that much social interaction with people, so I don't get a lot of those neurons and those muscles don't get exercised like they should. Okay. Oh, this was another one. This one is. I should probably do a picture on this one actually. Yeah. Let me do it. Let me bring up the actual video on this one because this is. Let's see, this is the 1849 storyline. At the end of that storyline, the protagonist, his wife, is the daughter of his antagonist, the guy that he ends up being against in the thing. So let me mute this. Let's see if I can find that. I didn't plan on doing this, but what I will do is I will try to bring up that. All right, let's see if we can find this here. It's towards the end, I think. Yeah, here it is. Okay, yeah, I got it muted here because we don't need to hear the dialogue here, but there it is. That woman there, see, that's a mixed race woman, and it is the daughter of this guy, who is a racist slave owner, slave trader guy. And in my analysis of the movie, I said, oh, okay, she's mixed race. She must be the product of him, having sex with one of his slaves, thinking like Thomas Jefferson, right? And Sally Hemings, that's what was in my mind when I was thinking about that. But in reflection, of course, in the narrative, they didn't explain, what it was, what the story was there. They just showed this mixed race woman. So I thought, it was like Thomas Jefferson, right? And because he had mixed race children with Sally Hemings, but as it turns out, or what I thought might be make more sense, is that this guy's wife probably had sex with a black guy, and this guy just got cucked, I think that's probably what happened there. So that makes a little bit more sense to me. So, yeah. This guy was really bad. This Hugo Weaving, man, he played evil people throughout this whole movie. The way it worked out, all the different actors played different roles, throughout the thing, and they were really, they had different makeup. I knew they were quite different roles, all of them. But this Hugo Weaving, he played an evil guy throughout the whole thing, and there was another one who played an evil guy. Jim Broadbent played mostly. Well, yeah, I don't know. He kind of evolved a little bit. Anyway, so that was that. So So let me go back to this thing. All right. So let's see. Forgot that Cavendish did a meta about what. Oh yeah, there was a. I don't think I mentioned this in any of my things, but it was kind of cool. Remember at the very beginning of the thing, of the movie, they have Tom Hanks as an old man, kind of talking about what the stories are going to be about. You know, the main subject or whatever, in a kind of an encoded way. Let's see here. But there was another meta in here that was also kind of important, and that was when in the Timothy Cavendish story. Yeah, if you haven't seen Cloud Atlas, oh, we got to chatter. Happy Nightmare. Hi, welcome in. Welcome in, Happy Nightmares. Was in an ad for a minute. Oh, God, I forgot about the ads. Oh, yeah, I was going to figure out how to do that. Ah, damn. Yeah, I was going to write a little program to take care of that, because the tools they have apparently don't do that. Yeah, that's weird. Hard one to pronounce. Yeah, Edinburgh. Yeah, how the heck am I going to do this? I'm not sure how I can do this and still to know when the ads are coming up. I just have to. All right. Well, I'm going to try to find this on the fly here, because it's kind of cool. This little thing here, and I don't think I actually played it before. But it was towards the beginning of the movie, I think. So I'm going to try to find it. I didn't really think that I was going to. Here it is. Okay. All right. So I will try to bring this up on the screen here. All right. Can you see that? Okay. And I'll turn on the sound. So this is right at the beginning of the movie. This is like 2 minutes into the movie or something. It's really, really early in the movie when they're kind of flipping between the different stories. And this is the story with Timothy Cavendish, who is a publisher, and he has this experience in his storyline. And at the end, he writes his little autobiopic or whatever. It's an autobiography that turns into a picture later on. But let me just play this really quick here, and I think I got the audio.
As an editor has led me to my extensive experience as an editor has led me to a disdain for flashbacks and flash forwards and all such tricksy gimmicks. I believe that if you, dear reader, can extend your patience for just a moment, you will find there is a method to this tale of madness.
I did. Okay, so that did you get what he was doing there? This is the
6 minutes tale of madness. Extend your patience.
This guy who's writing a book, a character in the movie writing a book, and as he's writing the book, he's saying, "Oh, I don't like this kind of stuff. These non-linear timeline type narratives, you know." But, and then he says, "Wait, if you just wait just a second here and have some patience, there's a method to the madness. There's a reason why it's done this way." And he's the character saying that, but it's something that is being said about the movie. The movie is a non-linear, it's very flat. It has flash forwards, flashbacks. It goes all over the place, and it's very confusing. And so this is a way that the filmmakers are having a character in the movie talk about the movie, so the movie is aware of itself, And there was another one that I mentioned in my review. You can look at it that it was the same kind of a thing. But I don't think I mentioned this one before, so I thought I wanted to mention that. That was kind of cool. All right, let's see. Let's see here if we can get. I don't know if that made sense to you guys. Um, yeah, ads are big. Yeah, looking at chat here, ads are a big problem. Oh, we have a first-time chatter, Amazon Robinhood. he says, "Hi, I also stream vegan, do science, woke content. Great, great. Glad you could join us here. Yeah, that's good. We need more vegan vegans out there talking about being vegan and all the advantages and all that stuff. So, how often do you stream there, Robin Hood?" Yeah, Happy Nightmares says, "Yeah, breaking the fourth wall." Yeah, that's what they were doing, kind of. It's and movies. A lot of movies do that now. You know, they'll and they do it this subtle way. You know, kind of. You know, like in this particular case, that writer who was typing on the keyboard, his narration is narrating his biography that he did, right? You know what I'm saying? He's not narrating the film; he's narrating a book that him as a character in the movie wrote. So it's not it's kind of like a indirect breaking of the fourth wall. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool though. Anyway, and there are a ton of these kind of Easter eggs throughout this whole movie. This comes like in the first 2 minutes of the movie, and of course, when you see this, you don't understand it right away. You know, you hear him talking about that and typing in it. You don't know who this guy is. You don't know what he's writing. You don't know any of it right at the very beginning. But once you get into it, you find out really quickly that he's talking about the movie. You know, kind of random. Okay, yeah. Robin Hood says kind of random, but a couple of times a week. Some weeks more frequent, less frequent. Yeah, that's kind of like me. I do like 1 or 2 times a week, but it's been over a week since I've streamed, so it was. So I thought I should get out here and do this. What we're doing is a correction to my past streams. You know, when I do stuff, I like to do like kind of informative stuff. You know, but sometimes I get the information wrong or whatever. So that's what this stream is about, or at least part of this stream is about correcting some of the mistakes that I made in the last one, or the last few streams. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, this shot at the end of the film. Let's see if I can find that here. Okay, look at this. All right. We will bring this up. I think it's up. Okay. So in the movie, I'll just play this little clip here, and you can see it again.
Okay.
Thank you. Captain says so. Take you with us.
All right. So it's in my review of the film. I brought up this little shot here, and this is kind of a spoiler, so if you haven't seen the film, it's a bit of a spoiler, so you might want to tune. If you haven't seen the film yet, you might want to tune out the next minute or so. But this guy right here, this actor played the slave in the very first story. This is the last story, story 6, which takes place in 2321. And in the very first story, which took place in 1849, this actor played the slave. And he was on a ship. And so I mentioned that in my review, that it was kind of cool that he was the slave who was a stowaway on a ship in the first story. And in the last story, he's a captain of this ship in the future, this big, you know, futuristic ship, you know. And I had mentioned that this is really cool. They had a lot of color in this, you know, you know, movie. This was the part of my review where I talk about representation of different races and genders and all that. And I like to, show how movies are either biased or not biased or whatever in that regard. And in this movie, I pointed out that this was really cool that they had in this futuristic thing, they had a lot of people of color in this scene. But the problem was this scene was only on there for a few seconds. If you saw it, I'll play it again.
Okay.
Thank you.
You see, it was only a few seconds that they had it on there. So I didn't notice, and the first time I saw the movie, that guy I didn't know, first of all, that he was the captain or anything, and it was kind of hard to figure that out because that was only on there for a few seconds. They could have, and it looks like they did shoot a lot more footage of that particular scene there, of them standing around trying to decide whether or not this guy would be allowed to come with them on the boat, on the ship. But they cut it down, and I guess I wanted to explain my conjecture as to why they cut that down to only 3 seconds. That scene there, and it's because, well, one, it's a over 3 hour movie, so they, that's something that happens in the process of movie making. Typically, you've got, you have 4 hours of film, and you got to cut it down to 2.5 hours or 3 or whatever whoever's paying for the thing is going to allow you to do, and so you got to make decisions. You got to cut stuff out, and this whole movie is so packed. It develops every single second of this movie develops characters, develops the plot, develops. I mean, it's very dense. There's a lot of stuff to it. So that particular scene of them standing around and deciding whether that character would be allowed to go on the ship. Oh shit! I just realized that this isn't playing very well. This looks like it's not lined up here for some reason. Damn. All right, I gotta start over here. All right, let me go back here. Sorry about that. I'll get to chat in a little bit here. I want to get this figured out. Because you couldn't even see this thing when I played it. All right, let's try this again. All right, that's better.
Okay.
Thank you. Captain say so take you with us.
I want to go with Marilyn.
All right, so anyway, that scene. Let me put that on there again. This shot here was only on there for 3 seconds in a whole movie, which isn't a lot of time for a 3 hour movie, So that's a problem, But what I'm trying to explain is that the reason why they probably did that is because this was a very, very long movie and very dense. Everything that happened in the movie, was developing characters, developing the plot, blah, 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 everything is very dense. And this particular scene is just basically them deciding whether or not that other character should be allowed to come on the boat or not, and the captain saying, yeah, it's okay. And I'm guessing that they had other characters, because I saw footage of other characters on this, shown in this shot here, speaking in this scene that were not in the movie. So I'm guessing that was shot as a longer scene, you know. Maybe not, but anyway, I think that's why they cut it down. And also for pacing. This is the end of the movie. At the beginning of the movie, or whatever, you know, at different points of the movie you have different pacing, right? When you're making a film, sometimes you want it to move along really quickly. Sometimes you want to draw it out and give the audience time to think, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So they had a pacing thing here. Usually at the end of the movie, once you're hitting the climax of, you know, of the movie, and you're after the climax, then you don't want to have it drag out way too long and have the pace go on too long. So it was probably for pacing and for time, you know, and all that kind of stuff is why they cut that out. I'm guessing. That's my guess. So I wanted to explain that. I didn't explain that in the thing. I just said, oh, it's only 3 seconds, you know. Oh, okay. Sixsmith. Sixsmith is. Let me bring my window up here. My little text window. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that, right? Yeah, Sixsmith. I didn't mention this, but yes, the guy's name is Sixsmith. That's his name. 6 is the number of stories. It's also they kept referring to the Cloud Atlas as a sextet. So it was just one of those little Easter eggs that I didn't mention. I meant to mention it and forgot to. That the guy's name is Sixsmith. So I thought that was kind of funny. Sixsmith is somebody who works or formulates something or builds things or whatever. Let's see what I have here. Oh yeah, it was kind of obvious, but I didn't mention that the characters. One of the things in this film is that the characters are reincarnated over and over and over again, like I had shown in this other. Like this scene here, right? You got all these characters here. Oh, I see what it's doing. Okay. All these characters, or most of these characters, are reincarnated, right? This is Jim Broadbent on the left there, who started out as a captain of a ship, who wanted to kill a stowaway slave, and he was a mean guy in the second one too, and he was the publisher, who was kind of semi-corrupt, you know, or whatever in the third one. And anyway, they kind of progress. When they get reincarnated, they have kind of like there's somewhat of a continuity between them. Or like I mentioned, Hugo Weaving played evil characters throughout the whole thing. So his soul or whatever his character was bad, you know, throughout the whole thing. And but you know, some of them develop, and who am I thinking of? Like Hugh Grant was evil, you know, throughout the whole thing. But like the other character, the guy who played the Adam Ewing character, Jim Sturgis, he started out as bad, right, or you know, doing bad things. He was facilitating slave trade. But then he very quickly, his reincarnated character, whatever, developed. And at the end, he was like a hero who was helping, or second to the last one, he was a hero who was helping in the revolution and a lot of other stuff. So that's what that's about. So all the characters, when they do reincarnate, they are developing. There's something happening. The individual characters may or may not develop within their stories. You know, they may or may not develop. But the reincarnated the actor. Okay, the actor who plays the reincarnated characters develops. That's what I wanted to say. Or like the one that was kind of interesting was Tom Hanks' character, who in the beginning of the thing was an evil doctor. He was just flat out evil, bad guy. And but then later on, like in the next one, he's a hotel manager who is still, kind of, he extorted a guy, right? It was a minor part, but he was still kind of doing bad stuff. And then in the middle one, what was he in the middle one? Oh, the Cavendish story. He was that criminal author. Remember who threw the guy off the balcony? Spoiler. And then, but then he got toward the end here. He played this guy. He played this guy called Zachary, right here. Who actually I could probably.
Captain says so. Take you with us.
I want to go with Marilyn.
Go.
There he is. So he plays this guy, who looks like a bad guy right here, but he isn't. I mean, he's. And in this particular narrative, in this particular storyline, this is the one that happens in 2321, the year 2321. His character is actually struggling between good and evil. They had that Georgie character, that weird Georgie character. So anyway, and what happens is he meets Halle Berry's character, and she's good, or nice anyway. And at the very end of the thing, he says, "Oh, she's the best thing that ever happened to me." So by him meeting this other character, he ended up going good, right? He did good. So that's how his character. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if I made it explicit when I was doing my review, whether or not that I said that explicitly. I don't think I got into that in a detailed way. So let's see what else we got here. Well, let me go to chat here. Okay, Happy Nightmares. Yeah, thank you for lurking the stream. I appreciate it. And Robin Hood says, kind of random, but a couple of times a week. Oh, okay. Oh, I already read that. Okay. Got lurk, right. All right. Okay, good. All right. So we're caught up on chat. Reincarnated character reincarnated. Okay. Climate change in Neo Soul. Did I? I think I did mention that. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that there was climate change in Neo Soul. What was going on there? I don't know why I put that in my Corrigenda here. Yeah, there weren't a lot of Latina characters in the movie. There was just that one in the 1971 storyline that was played by Duna Bay. Who was Asian, by the way, and they made her up to be Latina. And then there was the character who wrote, I forget the character's name now, who was the little kid who was with Halle Berry's character in 1971. So that was the only story that had Latina that I could think of that were, definitely Latina. So that was something that I didn't mention. I didn't mention the lack of Latina characters in the thing. There were a ton of. There's, each they got 6 different stories, and each story has, a ton of different characters in there. So a lot of characters in this thing. So, the string instrument that the guy was playing in the Neo Soul storyline, the 2144 storyline. There's a quick little scene that I pointed out in my review. And I couldn't remember the name of the instrument, and it's called a hagium, I think. Hagium? something like that. That's what that instrument that he was playing, that's what it's called. Should I show a picture of that? I guess I can go look at a picture of that. Let me look that up so I can show you what that is. It was a really cool. It was on there. Another one of those things that was only on there for like a second or two. But it was, you know, I mean, it must have spent hours and hours and hours and hours making up Jim Broadbent to look like that character. So there it is. That's what he was playing. This little instrument here. It's called a Hagem. I don't know how you pronounce it. But he was playing that instrument in the thing, and he was using. The reason why I pointed it out was because he was playing the Cloud Atlas song, which is another thing that I brought up in my review. You know, but throughout the film, they would use, one of the characters wrote this piece called the Cloud Atlas. It was a piece of music, and not only did they play it in that storyline where he wrote that, or composed and played that piece of music, but they also used that piece of music in all kinds of other different things. They used it as score, and they also used it, like, for example, in this one, Jim Broadbent was playing this thing. So it's just kind of funny the way they did that. Let's see here. All right. What else we got here? Can you see that? Yeah, you can see. You can read that. Stringed instrument. Okay. Oh, the Mars moons. Yeah, that was one. Let me find that here. This is kind of this is a spoiler. So if you have not seen Cloud Atlas, don't look. you tune out for a minute or so. There we go. He at the very end of the movie, Tom Hanks' character Zachary is explaining to a little kid, you know, where Earth is and all this kind of stuff, and they end up showing this shot here. With this is Tom Hanks' character. There's Zachary and one of his grandchildren. And this is a spoiler, so don't. Yeah, okay, spoiler. If you don't want to, if you haven't seen Cloud Atlas, tune out for a little bit. They are on Mars, and these are supposed to be what is it, Phobos and Deimos or whatever the name of the moons are. But they show them as spherical, and they're not. Actually, those moons are actually not spherical. Let's see if I can get pictures of those here. They must have pictures in this Mars article about those. Maybe not. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now, let me show you a picture of what those look like. This is Phobos. It's almost round, but it's not, it's kind of oblong, you know. It's because they're so small. They're so small, the gravity can't collapse them down. Can't collapse it into a sphere. They're more like asteroids, you know. And this is Deimos or Deimos. That's what it actually looks like. So that was another thing they got wrong in the movie, and I don't think I was even aware of this when I was reviewing the thing. You know, I probably learned it at some point that they weren't spherical, but just forgot or whatever. So that was something that I didn't explain. And if you can watch the review, I get into a lot more detail about you know, how we know that they were on Mars and everything else. So if you want to look that up in the review. All right, what else did I have in here? Yeah, this was something that was. I thought about this, but I don't think I didn't mention it in the review. I don't think so. In the storyline, this is another spoiler. So, in the storyline of the last story, the one that's after the post-apocalyptic Hawaii story. Let's see. Pre-roll ads are disabled for some. You know what? I think there is actually a way I can look at where my ads are. I don't know if I'm in an ad right now, but there it is, Ad Manager. Does that show me where I'm at? No, I'm not in an ad now. Okay. Running manually. Okay. So in that storyline of 2321, in the year 2321, they're stranded on Hawaii, whatever. It's post-apocalyptic, and there's radiation that's killing people, and that's what was kind of driving the plot, was that they wanted to get off Earth, and that was something that was driving the plot for that particular storyline. But the whole thing is, if there was some major war a century earlier that created a whole bunch of radiation, and they have to get off the plane. This is like 106 years after that war. So how did they survive that 100? If they're, you know what I'm saying? If there's deadly radiation on Earth that's killing off people, 106 years after this war, and they say, oh, we have to get off the Earth because of this radiation. How did they survive 5 generations, of this radiation? It didn't make sense. And then the radiation is going to be stronger, right, immediately after. If it's a, it was like a, if they used nukes that created isotopes that were decaying, then it would be stronger radiation right after the war than it would 106 years later. So that didn't make sense to me. That whole timeline thing didn't. I mean, that whole plot element didn't make sense to me. So that was something I wanted to bring up. That was kind of a mistake. Oh, they used the N-word in this film, which I didn't mention. But I don't like when anybody uses the N-word, even in a fictional thing or anything. So that kind of bugged me about this film. But they did. It was only used in the 1849 timeline. When they still had slavery and all that, and it was used by characters who were, really disgusting people and stuff. So it's, I don't know. They used it a couple times. So that's something to be aware of. And I wanted to mention that in my review, and I forgot to mention it when I was doing my review. But it's something you should be aware of when you're, that's going to be in the film. Let's see, it's about slavery, but the protagonist. Yeah, this is another thing. In the 1849 storyline. We got chatter. Let's see. Robin Hood says, "What is the movie you were talking about again? Dipped out to get a peanut butter sandwich." Oh, it's Cloud Atlas. I did a review of Cloud Atlas in my previous stream about a week ago. You can look it up. Cloud Atlas, a movie made in 2012. So, yeah, if you haven't seen that movie, you probably don't want to listen to this stuff if you plan on seeing the movie, because I'm going to have spoilers for a little bit. So the thing was the first story. 6 different stories. The first story is about is 1849, about slavery. But the protagonist of the story is white, so you know what I'm saying? It's like, and I don't know how they could have done the narrative, about, because the point of the whole thing is how people evolve and improve, and figure out that the way things were done before is not morally correct or ethically correct, so they have to evolve and change and say, yeah, it's better to do. They become better. So I'm not sure how you could do that with with a black character, but it just you know, it was just kind of weird that thing was about slavery, but the protagonist was white, and the story was kind of about that particular character. He was the comic character, you know. So would you recommend? Yeah, it's my new favorite film, actually, even though it's got these, you know, some, you know, not so good stuff in it. Just my previous favorite film was 2001: A Space Odyssey, which had no black people in it. So this is a huge improvement in terms of representation and everything. But that was, you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey was also a sci-fi epic. So it's, I guess I'm partial to sci-fi epics, I guess. But this is my new favorite film, actually. So, yeah, I do like this film. This is Cloud Atlas, 2012. Oh, yeah, somebody had brought up in, you know, when I posted my review on YouTube, somebody put in the comments about, you know, they, at some point in the film, they had this big satellite dish. Here, I'll look that up, too. I'll see if I can find that and put that up here, because it'll make it a little bit more sense. All right, I'm scanning through the video right now to find this this image of this satellite dish, because it was. Here we go. No, that's not it. Getting close, getting close. I'm trying to find this thing here. I can't, unfortunately, I can't, I would show this on the screen as I'm scanning through it here, but I can't do that because it's an R-rated movie, and I don't want some titties to pop up or something on the stream, so I got to do this. I got to do this offline, find the scene first, and then show. All right. Oh my goodness. Sorry for this delay here. I'm trying to find this thing here. I didn't really plan out this stream. I didn't plan on showing visuals on this. I was just going to talk about this, but it didn't. When I started doing it, it makes more sense for me to show visuals here to explain what I'm talking about. Damn, I can't find it at all here. Okay, that big attack came afterwards, so let's see here. Yeah, it's about a 3-hour movie, so it's to try to find a particular scene in a 3-hour movie. Isn't that? There it is. Got it. All right, stop. There we go. All right. All right, I'm going to put this up here now, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. There we go. So this... At some point in the film, they get to this point where they got to send a message to Mars, basically, people on Mars. And so they use this big, dish antenna, and it's doing lasers, some advanced, very, very high frequency EM to send it to Mars. And my comment was that is unnecessary. To communicate to Mars is not a big deal through radio. You could build somebody who knows how to build anybody who knew how to build a radio back in 1930 would know, could build a radio that could communicate to Mars. So it's not that big of a deal. So they had this part of the plot of the movie was they had to get to this special antenna way up on a mountain. You know, it's way high up on a mountain in Hawaii, and it's this dish antenna, and it's shooting a laser. And anyway, somebody in the comments on the YouTube, when I posted this on YouTube, they said, well, it could be that the radiation is interfering with that, and that's actually possibly true. If there was radiation and isotopes in the atmosphere, they could ionize the gases up there that could affect the way that radio waves travel, and it might be difficult to get particular frequencies or whatever out through the atmosphere if that happened. So that's possible. So my criticism there, there's a workaround for the thing. Let's see. Robin Hood says, "Oh, I liked Space Odyssey. Maybe I'll give it a watch." Yeah, you should give it a watch. It's pretty good. I'm giving a few spoilers here, but they're not major. It's a kind of movie that you really need to work at to watch. But if you liked Space Odyssey was the same way. It was, although Space Odyssey was more or less linear. I don't know if they had any. It was more or less linear until the end, of course. And then they did all kinds of weird things with time in that one at the end. So it was kind of hard to figure out. But this one is really difficult to figure out. It takes a lot of work to watch it. You got to watch it more than one time. What I would suggest, unless you really like to try to figure movies out on your own, and like to work at it when you're, to figure out really difficult movies. But if you need to hit a little, if you'd like to have a little bit of a head start, I did a two-part review of the movie. The first part of the movie, the first review, or part one of my reviews, did not have any spoilers in it. So part two, which is the part I'm doing my Corrigenda on here, did have spoilers, but part one did not. So if you can find on YouTube on my it's doubletribble-yt is where I put my reviews, and I actually made a trimmed down version of that one, of part one. If you go to KXQE on YouTube, just go to YouTube and search for the channel KXQE. I posted part one review of Cloud Atlas there, which has no spoilers. And that's probably the best thing. So if you wanted to watch the film and you wanted a little bit of a head start, you could watch that review, and it'll give you enough information to help you process the film a little bit easier. All right. At the beginning of the film, Tom Hanks' character says something about they have this new speak, or what do they call it, Valley folk speak or something, that the new future speak, which is basically, it's kind of a pidgin English, which is supposed to represent the evolution of English language. It's like 300 years in the future. So, and he said something, Babbitt's bawling. He used the phrase Babbitt's bawling. And in my review, I said they probably were referring to Babbitt, the character Babbitt in Lewis Sinclair's novel, who just kind of goes along with what things are rather than challenging things. And this movie is about progress. It's about challenging tradition. It's about changing things that are wrong. Not doing things just because they were done that way. Traditionally. So that's what I thought. But somebody made a comment that in that Newspeak language, Babbitt means baby. So they were saying baby's bawling. But even if that is the case, I think it had a more of a metaphorical meaning in the film. It was more, he wasn't just saying babies crying. He was saying people who want, people who want to hang on to the old ways of doing things are complaining about people wanting to change. That was my interpretation of it anyway. So anyway, that's the thing talking about. That's talking about Cloud Atlas and some of the mistakes I made, or things I wanted to include and forgot to include, or whatever. So yeah, I do recommend seeing the movie. It is pretty cool. It's and as I said, it's challenging movie to watch. So it's not the but if you watch my review, my part 1 review, that'll give you a little bit of a head start. And it's always hard to watch. If you want to watch, even just watching trailers these days, trailers spoil movies nowadays. Which is just, I don't like spoilers in movies. But so I tried to design that part 1 review so that it would not spoil the movie. I play some clips and stuff like that, but they don't. Of course, they don't spoil the main thing. So if you watch that review first, then it'll. Of course, if you're watching this, I just spoiled a whole bunch of stuff, right? So, all right. So we got an ad coming up in 50 seconds. The next thing I'm going to talk about is a hole through Earth. I was doing a stream about a week or two ago, and we talked about what would happen if there was a hole through the Earth. Somebody asked me this. They said, what if you fell into a hole that went all the way through the Earth? And I didn't have anything planned. I just started talking about it. I didn't have anything planned. It's just somebody asked me the question in the chat. And I got most of it right, but there were a few things that I didn't get right. So I wanted to talk about that. So after the ads, I'll talk about that. So if you stay with me through the ad, I think it's an hour, a minute and a half or something like that. And then we'll talk about that. Well, it still says ad starting soon, so maybe you guys aren't seeing an ad yet. I don't know. I thought it was playing an ad. I don't know. Yeah, their ad manager and their whole ad system here needs a little bit of work, I think. Because I can't tell if it's playing an ad or not. Okay, now it says ad in progress. Okay, so it said... Yeah, whatever. It said ads coming up in 5 seconds. And 15 seconds later it says ad coming soon. So I don't know. I think it's playing an ad now. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. There are only 4 people here. I don't know why they would bother, but we'll see. So I'll just wait for that to go through. the ads done yet? I don't know if the ads are done yet. Yeah, it's okay. I think the ads are done. I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to bring up the same. When I was talking about this, I used the my paint program to kind of illustrate stuff, and so I'll bring that up here again if I can. There we go. Okay. So this is the this is my illustration for the Earth with a hole in it. All right. It's not that, I'm not an artist. But anyway, when I was talking about it, I was saying up here, we were talking about, how acceleration works and how gravity works and all that kind of stuff. And so in the center, there's no gravity in the Earth. Any planet. In the black hole, there's no gravity in the center of a black hole, actually. There's no gravity at the center. But if you had this big hole through the Earth, and of course you'd make it at the poles, right? Because if you tried to do it sideways, the Earth is spinning, and that would screw things up. So you'd have to do it from North Pole to South Pole, and make it wide enough so you wouldn't hit the walls on the way down and all that kind of stuff. But the idea is that gravity at any point is determined by the radius, how far away you are. So like if you're out here in space somewhere, if you're in a spaceship out here somewhere, the amount of the pull of the gravity, and of course it's this curvature of space-time, right? It's not really a force pulling you, right? You're going through space-time, curved space-time. That's that's what it is. But if you wanted to figure out how strong that quote-unquote force is at this point, then you take the radius, you take the distance from the center of this massive body to where you're at, so that would be a radius, and you square it. And then you take the mass of this massive body times the gravitational constant and divide it by that radius squared, which means that the closer you get, the smaller the denominator is on that function and the more gravity there is, right? Which makes sense. So if you're way out here in space, there's going to be less gravity. If you're in a low Earth orbit right here, there's more gravity. And if you're on the surface of the Earth, there's more gravity than if you're at the top of a mountain, that sort of thing. And so the closer you get to the center of the Earth, the stronger the gravity is, which means that if you fall in a little hole here, a big hole through the Earth, you get closer to the center, which means gravity will get stronger. And as the gravity gets, as you get closer and closer, you're getting closer and closer to the center. The radius is shorter, so the gravity is going to be stronger. But also what happens is as you get further and further down, there's more mass behind you than in front of you, right? There's mass up here on the Earth. So that comes into effect. And the way it works out is that gravity is strongest at some point about a third down or whatever into the surface. Gravity is strongest, which means that the acceleration, which is how gravity is expressed as an acceleration, is going to be strongest at that point. And what I said is that the speed would top out at that point, and I misspoke. That's not right. It's the acceleration would be the greatest at this point. The speed tops out at the center, because you're still, throughout this whole process of falling through this thing, you're being accelerated through that whole process, because at any point through this tube until you get to the center, there's more mass in front of you in the direction you're falling than there is behind you. You know what I'm saying? So like if you're right, even if you're right here close to the center, if you draw a line, suppose you're right here in the center and you draw a line through Earth, to represent the all the vectors that are going behind you versus the ones going in front of you. So if you were right here at this line, there's more mass here than there is here. So it's still going to be accelerating you a little bit here. But as soon as you get to the center, then it's equal. And at the center of any planet, or there's no gravity. There's no acceleration at this point. Which means the maximum speed is going to be at this point too. So I misspoke when I said that. I said the maximum speed would be up here somewhere, but it's not. You're still accelerating until you actually get to this point. But something I did say that was right is that the math and the time that it takes to fall and a lot of stuff is related to an orbit. This is falling through the Earth is very similar to orbiting the Earth. If you start right here and you jump into the Earth and you fall all the way down, you get going really fast and you reach maximum speed at the center, and then you'd start slowing down because there'd be a negative acceleration, right, pulling you backwards. So you'd slow down and then you'd get to zero right here, and then you'd fall back in again, and it would oscillate back and forth. And that oscillation is very similar to what happens in an orbit, when, like, if you're in low Earth orbit, because what happens to a space, like say a space station in low Earth orbit, it's falling all the time. It's falling, but it has momentum. It has speed that keeps it from actually, losing altitude, and it just goes into orbit. And it turns out that oscillation is the same time as a low Earth orbit, or an orbit. If you could orbit the Earth right at the surface, say, that's what it would be. In low Earth orbit, it's a little bit longer, because the further, orbits that are further away or higher altitude are longer orbits. It takes longer time to get around the Earth. And I misspoke. I think I said, well, I was just going off the top of my head, because I didn't really know. But I said I thought that it would take 45. No, I think I said it would take an hour and a half to get through the Earth, but that's not right. It would take about an hour and a half to make one complete circuit. So, one complete orbit through the center of the Earth. So you'd fall all the way through the Earth, you'd get to here. That's about 42 minutes. And you'd fall back again. That'd be another 42 minutes. So it's about just shy of an hour and a half to do a round trip through the thing. And there's actually a formula that you can use to do that. Let me bring that up, because it is kind of cool. I might have too much stuff open here. I'm not sure for my little computer to handle, but we'll figure it out. Here it is. All right. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, I hope you could see all that stuff. I hope I had that aligned good enough so you folks could see that. Oh, Sydney. Hi, Sydney. How are you? Welcome in. Welcome to chat. Happy Monday. Yeah, happy Monday. Yeah, everybody hates Mondays, but let's reframe that. Let's make it a happy Monday. Yeah, I'm talking about Sydney. I'm talking about technical stuff here. I'm talking about what would happen if there was a hole all the way through the Earth, and you fell in the hole, what would happen? And it turns out that you end up going all the way to the other side, and bouncing back. It goes back and forth. So that's so this is going to be kind of technical, but this is this here is the formula. So they're saying if you have a small body orbiting a central body, which is what a spaceship orbiting the Earth is, right? The mass of the little spaceship or the space station is insignificant to the compared to the mass of the Earth. So they simplify this little formula here, and this is how you figure out how long it takes for a spaceship to orbit something. Could be the Earth, could be anything. And the way you figure that out is G is the gravitational constant, which is a number that's just a universal constant everywhere in the universe, as far as we know. M is the mass of the body that you're orbiting. And A is basically the radius. They call it the semi-major axis, which is you could do an elliptical orbit, or you could do a circular orbit. But you take the longest one here. They call that the semi-major axis, which is basically the radius. So if you wanted to figure out how long the orbit is for if falling through the Earth, because basically that's what's happening. If you start at one side of the Earth and fall into a hole and go all the way down to the bottom, and then go back up again, that's kind of like an orbit. It's like going and orbiting the Earth. We could figure out the exact time, and if you plug in all this stuff, let me show this gravitational constant. This is the value of the gravitational constant. And let's see, we would use this one here, cubic meters per kilogram per second squared. It's kind of complicated, but that's what that would be. It's a small number. It's 10 to the minus 11 magnitude, so it's a small number. But you would plug that into this formula, then you'd plug into the mass of the Earth, and then you'd plug in here for A, you would plug in the radius of the Earth, which is 6,400 kilometers or something like that. And I actually did this, and I worked it all out, and when you do all that, you end up with 42 minutes approximately. If you use the Earth's radius. So we go back to Mr. Tuck's paint here. So the time that it would take if you jumped in here, this hole here at the top, you go faster and faster and faster, and then you hit top speed here, and then it would slow, and you get all the way, and you'd get all the way to the top and just stop right there. Then you'd fall back in again. That would take 42 minutes to do that. And then you'd fall back in. Yeah, the 42 is half an orbit, right? If you're orbiting, like if you're in a space station here, you're going to be going around in a circle. And halfway around, that's at 100, 200 kilometers up, it's about 45 minutes. If you look at that number, for the Earth, it's going to be shorter, right? The radius is shorter, so it's going to be faster to orbit the Earth. Shorter time. And it works out to 84 minutes round trip for 42 minutes one way. When you plug all the numbers into that little formula. So that's, I hope that clears out what I said. It clears up what, because I was saying the wrong thing. I was saying that it was I was saying 42-minute round trip, which was wrong. And I also said that your top speed would be up here, but it's actually, that's your top acceleration is around here. What else is there? Oh yeah, the top speed that you get to. I'm pretty sure I couldn't find anybody to confirm this, but I think it's the escape velocity for Earth. Escape velocity is the speed that you have to go if you're on the surface of the Earth and you took off at, it's about 25,000 kilometers per hour, like shot from a cannon or whatever, just gave a boost at that speed, then you could escape Earth's gravity. Or that's just escape velocity is the where you would just approach getting away from the Earth's gravity. That's what escape velocity is. And I when I worked it out, it was top speed here is the escape velocity of Earth, and nobody said that that's what that is, but I'm pretty sure that's what that is, and it makes sense because that's all of the the escape velocity is different at different escape velocity here is going to be less because you're already in orbit, right? If you're flying around in orbit, so anyway, I thought that was kind of cool too. That's your top speed is the escape velocity. What else was there? Oh, I know what I can show. That's right. I was going to show this. All right, let me see if I can find this here. I wanted to show how the Earth's gravity, why it's zero in the center, and why it's a different gravity at different points. All right, let me bring this up. So take a second, just a second. We'll have it here. The thought. There we go. Turns out that the gravity of Earth is a real complicated thing. It's not the same everywhere. Here's a little graph that they made, and it's because the density, of the stuff in the Earth changes. It's different in different places, and at different altitudes. Up on a mountain it's going to be less, and so it varies. And this is like a map of the gravity. Which is really cool. They show them the gravity of Earth in a little map. And then this is one that I wanted to show here. Yeah, this one. This shows how much gravity there is, which is what we were just talking about. So up here, way above the surface of Earth, on the surface of Earth, it's about 9.8 meters per second squared. That's the acceleration of gravity on Earth that we're all feeling right now. If you're allowed to fall right now from where you are, you're going to fall at 9.8 meters per second for the first second, and then it's going to be 19.6 meters per second for the next second. It's going to keep adding up. That's why they say per second squared. So if you're up in space or you're way high up, it's less because the radius is larger. And if you're closer to the center of the Earth, it gets higher. So here at this point here, it's 10.7 meters per second, which is I think at the highest. Gravitational field strength. Let's see. B. Core mantle boundary. Okay. So they're saying it's 10.7. I don't think that's the maximum, but they're showing that at the surface it's regular gravity 9.8, but as you get lower and lower into the Earth, it's higher and higher. But then when you get to the center, it's 0. Okay. And they actually have a little graph here. Let's see. This one's talking about the density distribution inside the Earth. But this little graph here shows what the acceleration would be. So here at the center of the Earth, it's 0. Here at 64,000 or whatever it is kilometers is regular Earth gravity, which is 9.8. See, here's 9.8. There's 10 meters per second squared. This is 8 meters per second squared. So 9.8 meters per second squared is right about here. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. Which is right here. This is the surface of the Earth. 9.8 meters per second squared is the acceleration of gravity. That's how much gravity is at the top of Earth. So as you fell into the Earth, it would increase a little bit here. And the reason this is not a slope, this is right here, linear density. That means, or constant density would give you this kind of a slope. Linear density, which would just mean that everything was the same density, but it would be compacted because you're going towards the center of the Earth. That's what that little plot line means. But this blue line here is the plot of the actual Earth based on observation, with experiments and research and stuff that they've done. So what happens is, if you fell in that little hole, the acceleration would increase. You'd start at 9.8. It'd go up to 10, a little over 10 here, at a few hundred kilometers in. Then it would kind of even out or dip a little bit here, back down under 10. But then it would go really high again once you got to that boundary, the outer core and the lower mantle. That boundary is where it's the highest, which is 10 point, what did they say, 10.7 or something like that. Which is, but then after that, as you continue falling through, then there's more material behind you, and then it goes off again. The acceleration gets less and less and less, and then when you get to the center of the Earth, it's 0. So I thought that was kind of cool that they had mapped that out, had shown that. This is on Wikipedia. This is one of their charts or whatever in Wikipedia. One of their. Is that? No. There we go. Let's see. We'll give credit to the guy who did this little chart here. If they did it. So there's the guy who did here. There's the guy who did it. Oh, that's the source. Here's the author. There it is. So there. Let's see what the license is on this, just so we get that in there too. GNU free documentation license. Okay, that's what they're. Okay, this file is licensed under Creative Commons 3.0 unported. Okay, so I think that's all I have to do to show that. So I thought that was kind of cool. Let's see if they have anything else here. Okay, no, it's volcanic action. Yeah, okay, I guess that's it. So that was kind of cool. I thought that was kind of neat. Some of that stuff, and it was a mistake. So I wanted to correct that because I had said that it was that the speed topped out before you got to the center, but it doesn't. It tops out when you get to the center of the Earth. Let's see, in chat we have Robin Hood says, I completely muted you for a bit, but some of your ramblings opened up some really good thoughts for me to write about. So thanks for that. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Robin Hood. I appreciate it. Yeah, I ramble a lot. I think a lot. My mind goes all over the place. So yeah, it's just. I think it comes with the territory. You know, when you're doing. If you like to think about things, that's usually what happens. Okay, so I think that covers all that. I think I fixed all my mistakes, or most of my mistakes. I probably made some more mistakes here, but I think that explains what I was trying to explain with that Earth thing, what was going on there. There was another stream that I did where I did like a 30,000 foot view of what was going on in the world in terms of international relations and politics and what's happening in the world and all that kind of stuff. And something that I didn't mention in that thing. Let me see if I can. I'm trying to figure out how I can. What? All right, there we go. Trying to figure out how I can do this. I'll just. I know I've got a copy of my stream here. What I'll do is I'll bring that up. I think that's the easiest way I can do this. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for stuff. Okay, here we go. All right, remember this here? I'm going to bring this up. Oh, I forgot about ads too. Sorry. Should I look and see where ads are? Let me look and see where ads are. Ads start in 6 minutes. Okay. I probably blew through an ad there, but that's okay. 6 minutes. I think I can get this done in 6 minutes. All right, sorry, I'm trying to get this figured out here. There we go. Okay. So I was talking about all the things that are influencing what's going on in the world. What did I title it? I think I titled it. Yeah, it was on April 11th, 4/11. Get it? 4/11. So I said, here's the 411 and why things are so crazy. That was the title of the stream. But I was talking about all the different stuff that was going on in the world. And, technology and, one of the things that I didn't mention here when I was talking about the different technology that's kind of affects things, when radio came out, it had a big impact on what was going on. TV had a big impact. When computers came out, they had an impact. The internet, all these things have an impact on what's, on what people do and how they think. And, it makes, when a technology comes around, it makes the transfer of information much easier. Then more people know what's going on. And the people at the top don't like that. They don't like people they want to keep people ignorant about what's going on so they can screw them over, right? So when a technology comes out that allows people to communicate more effectively and figure out what's going on, then they learn they're getting screwed, and then they get upset and they demand change. So that's kind of what happens with technology. Like one of the impacts. It also, new technology can disrupt labor, markets and all kinds of other things, and affect incumbent industries. That get, the new technology has different players then can come in and do the same thing that the incumbent industries were doing, that sort of thing. But that was one of the things that I was talking about. And one of the things I didn't mention here was film, which came out right before radio, right? A couple decades before radio. They came out with film, which was a big deal. And that was a little disruptive in terms of, disrupting the state. Everything was done live before then, right? Stage productions and stuff like that, vaudeville, all that. That's how stories were told and entertainment was done. Yeah, but when they came out with film, that kind of changed things around that way. And film was used as a propaganda tool also. So that was an influence that I didn't mention in here that I should have. The other thing that I didn't mention, I talked about oil. That's a huge impact. It starts a lot of wars and all that kind of stuff. And I explained, quite a bit about how, how those wars, the current and recent wars, why they were due because of oil, and at least in part. But one of the things that I didn't mention, that is a huge contributor right now to what's going on here in the U.S., is that a couple decades ago, they figured out how to get oil out of shale, and where's it, North and South Dakota up there, and they have big shale fields, and the technology was always there to get oil out of that, but it didn't become economically viable, and there were some technical advances too. But anyway, what that did is it made, when we developed those shale fields and started extracting oil and gas more efficiently, then the U.S. became a net exporter of oil a couple of decades ago, which we never were. We always used more oil than we produced. Like during the 70s, remember when the Arab embargo, really affected us and all that kind of stuff. But now we're a net exporter of energy, of gas and oil. And when that happened, then the other countries and OPEC and all that, they don't like that. They don't like when countries put more oil, on the market. So we're exporting more than we're importing. That means that we're cutting into their market, right? OPEC, other countries that produce oil and export oil. And I mentioned that a lot of these wars are started because countries are, produce oil that lower the price of oil on the market. I talked about Iran. I talked about like the stability issues they have in Venezuela. Talked about the Gaza marine gas field off the coast of the Gaza Strip there. That's was one of the impetus, one of the drivers of that war that's going on right now, and in Ukraine. So that's one of the reasons why things are so screwy here in the U.S. There are a lot of reasons, right? But one of them is that we became a net exporter of oil a couple of decades ago, and that just people don't like that. The powerful people don't like that. Powerful people, the OPEC and powerful people who like to sell oil at higher prices might not like that. Might not like us being able to have that much control and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're the dominant country anyway, right? We got the highest economy and all that anyway, still economically, for now. But when we became a net exporter of oil, that was a big deal. So I wanted to mention that as a contributor. Russia's, a huge chunk of their economy is from oil and gas, so they didn't like that. So in addition to the blowback from the from the collapse of the Soviet Union, we also had that fact that we became a net exporter of oil, and so that was another contributor. So I didn't mention that, and I wanted to mention that because it was just something that I didn't include. Let's see if there's anything else here. Are we into our ads yet? Yeah, we're into our ads. All right, I'll restate this for the people who aren't who are seeing ads right now. I'll restate that again, just so you hear. Okay, that's it. Okay, I think the ads are over now. I'm not sure. But I'll do this again just in case. I don't know if they're over or not, but I'll restate this again because we got hit with ads there. So yeah, we became a net exporter of oil a couple of decades ago, and that is a lot of people don't like that. They don't, OPEC wants to be able to control the price of oil. And if the U.S. is a net exporter, then we have much more control over that. But I mean, really, these are multinational companies, so it's not like, borders mean anything to these companies. You know what I'm saying? So what happened? You're right. We got the shale oil, which was we figured out how to do that profitably a couple of decades ago. So we became a net exporter of oil and gas. In addition to the shale oil, there's also gas. There's a technology change in that the ability to compress natural gas, methane basically, and put them on these big tankers into liquefied natural gas and put them on ships and ship them all over the world. That's kind of a newer technology to be able to do that profitably, right? So that's kind of a new thing too. So the ability of the U.S. to take our oil and gas and produce more oil because of the shale oil made us a net exporter of oil and gas. And OPEC doesn't like that. And so whatever they can do to disrupt stuff that's going on here, to disrupt or influence what's going on here, that's another contributor to why things are messing up right now here in the U.S. politically. So anyway, I wanted to mention that because that was something that I did not mention the other day. On April 11th, 411, when I was talking about all this stuff. Okay, so that's it for my my Corrigenda. My Corrigenda. Yeah, that was it. So I want to try to do that from now on. If I ever say something that's not correct, please correct me. Please type. If you're watching live, type it into chat, and we'll try to resolve what the issue is. Or if you're watching on the VOD, if you're watching on YouTube or anywhere else, you watch anything that I produce, and you see something that's wrong, type it into the comments area or type it into chat or whatever, and I'll correct it. If it needs correcting, I'll correct it. Because it's really important that people know what's going on and know what the facts are. Facts are getting more scarce these days. So I don't want to contribute to that. I want to make sure what I say is correct all the time, if I can. Yeah, the next, what did I put in here? I said a core agenda for those things. Then I said puzzles and paradoxes. Okay, puzzles. I know what I was talking about there. Puzzles. There was a Happy Nightmares was a couple streams ago. She played a video of a woman who was a person who was doing a TED talk, and at some point she put up a puzzle. It was part of research. They were researching if music affects people's ability to solve puzzles or something like that. Anyway, she put this puzzle up there, and I was falling asleep, and I was just, I was just about ready to fall asleep. But I saw this puzzle, and it was here. I'll put it up here. It's basically wrong. There's a mistake in it, and I wanted to show that. Let's see. I think it's here. Yeah, that's it. Okay. I'm not sure how I can do this, but I will try. Maybe I can do that here. Yeah, I don't know how to do this very easily. Okay, this is gonna take a few seconds because I thought I had this figured out already. I got a technical thing I got to do here, so this will take a second to figure this out. Add image. Oh, maybe it won't take so long. Browse. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. Ta-da! Okay. Can you see that? You can see that pretty clearly, I think, can't you? Maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. Let's see. Can I zoom that in a little bit? Yeah, I can make that a little bit bigger. There we go. So in this TED Talk, she had this thing where she was talking about these this puzzle that they did as part of this research. They play music for people, and then they say, "Oh, if the people hear music, then it will make them better at solving this puzzle. And if they don't hear music, then they're not as good at solving the puzzle." Like that, basically, what the research was. And I actually, the next day, I looked up the research itself because it was kind of interesting, and I got that paper here. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But she put up this puzzle, and I looked at it, and it's like, I looked at it, and I said, well, none of those are it. Here's the idea: you got a piece of paper, you fold it down in half. You take the top, fold it down. So you fold the paper down in half, so that the fold here is this dotted line in number 1 here. You got these different figures here of a piece of paper is what it is. And you fold up the paper, and then you take a scissors and you clip out sections of the paper, and then you unfold the paper, and these little figures A, B, C, D, E at the bottom are representing choices as to what you think the paper will look like after it's unfolded. So you get it? You get what's going on here? You take a piece of paper, you fold it up a special way, you clip out parts of it with the scissors, and then you unfold the paper again. And then what you're supposed to do, the puzzle is you're supposed to try to figure out what the paper will look like after you unfold it. And the particular sequence that this puzzle uses to fold the paper, let me see if I'm... Okay, I got 7 minutes yet. The particular sequence that you're supposed to fold it is you're supposed to take the paper and fold it down from the top and fold it in half so that the fold is running horizontal in the middle of the paper. Then you fold it down 1/3 from the top and then fold it again 1/3. And then you fold it from left to right. You see those little figures there? I can't point to them here too well for some reason. Yeah, I don't know how to point to them here. My pointer isn't working right. But then after you fold it in half, from left to right, then you're supposed to mirror it, which, a mirror technically doesn't flip anything, but I'm assuming that they mean to flip it, to take the paper and flip it horizontally. That's what it looks like. It looks like that's what there's a little arrow there that's flipping it horizontally. So you mirror it, and then you rotate the paper 180 degrees, and then you clip out those two little shapes of the folded up piece of paper. You cut off the corner on the lower left, and you cut a little square there next to it, and then you open up the paper, and what do you get? And none of those are right. None of those answers are right if you look at it, right? It's the top. In the very first fold, you're folding the top down to the bottom. So the top and the bottom edge of that piece of paper are at the bottom. And in the next fold, you fold 1/3 down, and the top and the bottom of the page are still at the bottom. Then you fold another third, and the top and the bottom of the page are still at the bottom. Then you fold it from left to right, you make a fold into it, and still the top and bottom of that piece of paper are at the bottom of that folded up piece of paper. Then you mirror it, and that's just a horizontal flip, so that the bottom of that folded up piece of paper, the top and the bottom are still all at the bottom of that folded up piece of paper. But then you rotate it 180 degrees, and the top and bottom of the piece of paper on the top now. So when you're clipping the piece of paper, you're not clipping anything from the top and bottom of the piece of paper. You're only clipping, the folded parts of it. You see what's going on there? This is a puzzle, so it's kind of hard, I guess, to understand. You got to have your spatial cognitive has got to be pretty good for this, I guess. I don't know, but you're following what I'm saying, right? The top of that folded up piece of paper at the very end, when they're clipping it, the top edge and bottom edge of that piece of paper are all on the top of that folded up piece of paper. So none of the clips are cutting into the top edge or bottom edge of that piece of paper. But if you look at all those choices, A, B, C, D, and E, they all have clips to the top and bottom edge of the page, which is wrong. So none of those, not A, B, C, D, or E are the correct answer for that. So I thought, oh shit! If they were doing a study and they made a mistake, that would affect the study. So I looked up the study, and the study didn't use this one that I could tell. It had a different one. Let me see if I can find that. All right, this might be. Let's see. Can I find this? It's a download, probably. Yeah, there it is. Okay, you got it. Okay, so this is the actual study done by this and others, Francis Rosher and others, they say. So the paper is a little bit. They don't say all of the different puzzles that they gave to the people, but they did put an example in here. Here it is. So here's an example. Are those? No, those are different. Now this example is right? They fold it down from the top. They fold it from left to right, and then top to bottom again, and they don't rotate it or anything. So, and then, which is this going to be? This is going to be so top and bottom is the bottom. Top and bottom is the bottom. Top and bottom is the bottom. And they clip two corners, so that one's not going. This one could be it, but they clip both corners, so it's going to be in the center too. So I'm not sure here which of these would be actually. Which is this? Let's see. Let's figure this out. Top to bottom, left to right, top to bottom. So the top and the bottom is on the bottom here. Right? Top to bottom. Left to right. Top to bottom. So it's either C or E. Okay, I think it's C. Right? Yeah, I think the answer is C on this one. When you unfold it, it would look like this. Yep. So this one has the correct answer as the choice, but that other one didn't. So I thought that was kind of. I don't know. I don't think they used that other one in this test. This was an example that they used in the paper. They put an example in the paper. But let me see which. I think they use a standardized test actually for this. Let me see here. Let's go up here. Experiment. Design. Yeah, Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. So they're using the spatial IQ reasoning subset of the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. So it's not just this folding papers, I don't think. I think there's more to that than just these folded papers. Let's see. Okay, the paper folding and cutting items designed to measure spatial reasoning were derived from. Oh, okay. So they only use the folded paper cutting type quizzes, puzzles from the this Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale. All right. So I don't know if that one from that TED Talk was actually from the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale, or if it had been modified, or what was going on there. That would be funny if the actual test, if the Stanford-Binet Intelligence Test had a mistake in it. I don't think it did. I'm sure somebody would find that if there was an actual mistake in that. Anyway, I wanted to mention that because it was just something I saw and I think it was kind of interesting to me anyway. All right, so we got an ad in progress. So we'll wait for the ad to finish up. Okay, I think, are the ads over? I think they're over. Let's see here. Yeah, I think the ads are over. All right, I think we're... All right, so I put on here paradox. I think I wanted to talk about the Andromeda paradox, which is a lesser known paradox. Star Talk did... who was it? Sabina Hoffenstetter did one of her recent videos talking about the Andromeda paradox, and she referenced a video that's Neil deGrasse Tyson had done on Star Talk, where they were talking about it. Anyway, it's a lesser known paradox, I guess, but now it's well known. People are talking about it now, so it might be a known thing. And I wanted to actually try to figure it out. I was trying to figure it out myself, and try to understand it, what was going on there. But I'll bring up the Wikipedia page on it, and we'll learn it together. This is a live learn. We'll do a live learn on. Let's see here. No, that didn't work. All right. No, that didn't work either. We'll get there. We'll figure this out. Not connected. There we go. All right. Andromeda paradox. Okay. So they're saying Roger Penrose advanced a form of this argument that has been called the Andromeda paradox, in which he points out that two people walking past each other on the street could have very different present moments. If one of the people were walking towards the Andromeda galaxy, then events in this galaxy might be hours or even days behind the events on Andromeda for the person walking away from the galaxy. If this occurs, it would have dramatic effects on our understanding of time. Penrose highlighted the consequences by discussing a potential invasion of Earth by aliens living in the Andromeda galaxy. She mentioned, Sabine Hofstadter mentioned this and talked about this paradox, and I think I put a comment in her video that Einstein talked about this, that there's no such thing as simultaneity. It doesn't exist. You can't have simultaneity because, in different places, because of the way special relativity works. So I'll read this little thing that Penrose is talking about here. Two people pass each other on the street, and according to one of the two people, an Andromeda space fleet has already set off on its journey, while to the other, the decision as to whether or not the journey will actually take place has not yet been made. How can there still be some uncertainty as to the outcome of that decision? If to either person the decision has already been made, then surely there cannot be any uncertainty. The launching of the space fleet is an inevitability. In fact, neither of the people can yet know of the launching of the space fleet. Yeah, because it's millions of light years away. They can only know later, when telescopic observations from Earth reveal that the fleet is indeed on its way. Then they can hark back to that chance encounter and come to the conclusion that at that time, according to one of them, the decision lay in the uncertain future, while to the other it lay in the certain past. Was there then any uncertainty about that future, or was the future of both people already fixed? Yeah, so this gets into determinism and a lot of different stuff. But they're basically taking what Einstein said about you can't have simultaneity. People in two different reference frames are not going to agree on what now is. You know what I mean? If somebody's moving, they're going to have its time is going to be different, and so they're going to be looking at people in Andromeda in the past more than somebody who's standing still. That's about. It's just they're tying it into. There's no paradox because information can't flow that quickly. They can't know. So. Information can only go the speed of light. So there's not really a paradox there. That's just the way relativity works. But it's an argument for determinism, because if from one person's perspective something is already done, and then from another person's perspective it's still in the future, then in order for the person who is seeing it now or seeing it in the past, for their perception to be accurate, then it must have already been decided. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of an argument for determinism. Now I think it would be an argument for determinism to a point, right? Because you can't go all the way back throughout time, right? You can't go all the way back to the beginning of time that way. So I mean, it's only going to affect determinism between the two people at a particular near each other in two different reference frames. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. I read about that, and it's basically going back to what Einstein had said. And actually, it's the other guy. What's his name? Poincare or whatever. I forget the guy's name. Poincare or something like that. Let me write this in here. That took a while. Yeah, this thing right here on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. Right. That was his whole thing on special relativity. Yeah, Lorenz was involved in that, but there's somebody else I thought Poincare was involved. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Poincare, something like that. I think he was the first one who talked about. There it is, Henry Poincare, however it's pronounced. I think he was the first guy to talk about, not being simultaneity, if I'm remembering correctly. But all these guys were involved in it. It wasn't just Einstein. This guy was involved in it, and then Lorenz was involved in it. They were big. This guy, Lamore, I don't know that much about how much his was involved in it. Some of the paper's core equations, the Lorenz transformations, had been published by Joseph Lamore, Hendrik Lorenz, and Henry Poincare in a development of Lorenz's 1904 paper. Einstein's presentation differed from the explanations given by those guys, but was similar in many respects to the formulation by Poincare. Yeah, he was the first guy. Okay. So, yeah, what Einstein did is he explained it. He explained why. The other guys did some math, but he kind of explained it, why the math would be that way. So that's kind of interesting. So anyway, I think that covers everything. I'm not sure. I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about. How long have I been out here? Yeah, 2.5 hours almost, so that's long enough. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming, and I hope I cleared up some of those mistakes that I made before. And if I made any other mistakes, let me know in the comments on YouTube. I don't think Twitch has a facility for commenting on its VODs here, but I help, right after I finish my streams, I upload them to YouTube. So if there is anything on there that doesn't make sense, go ahead and put it in the comments on YouTube. Or you can contact me at at doubletribble.com. It's not set up yet, but if you ever needed to contact me, that's the way to do it. Go to doubletribble.com. You should be able to contact me there once I get that website set up. All right, I think that's it. Let me think if there's anything else that I need to do here. Oh, let me do a public service announcement. That's what I'll do. Let's see here. All right, public service announcement. All right.
All right.
All right. A lot of people may not know this, but we are still in a pandemic, a double pandemic. People are dying from COVID-19 still. It's been the last couple months. It's been running at about 200 people every day die from COVID-19 and the flu. And you can easily prevent that by wearing an N95 mask. An N95 mask is a mask that has a special kind of filter in it, an electrostatic filter that filters very, very small particles that the virus rides on. So if you wear one of these masks, this is the reason they call it N95 is because it's 95% effective. It filters out 95% of the tiny, tiny little particles that the virus rides on. And these masks are, they're specially made and they have to meet specifications and all that stuff. The governmental group in the U.S. that regulates this stuff is called NIOSH, N-I-O-S-H. So if you get a mask, if it has to say NIOSH in capital letters on it, NIOSH, and it has to say N95 on it. And it has to have these straps that go all the way around your head, when you wear it. Those masks that you wear that just go around the back of your ears, those are not N95 masks, and they might not be as effective. So you need to wear an N95 mask. And you need to wear it anytime that you're in public now. I know a lot of people are not wearing their masks now, but you need to wear it. You need to wear it whenever you're in public because a lot of people are dying, 200 people a day. That's a lot of people dying, Imagine if there was a terrorist attack or something, or somebody going wacko or whatever and killed 10 people somewhere, a mass shooting. And that happened in 20 different cities all across the United States in one day. That'd be a big deal, don't you think? Don't you think people would get upset about that? 200 people getting killed in mass shootings throughout the whole United States in one day. Now imagine if that happened the next day, and the next day, and the next day. That's what's going on right now. Right now. Nobody's talking about it, but that's what's happening. We got 200 people dying, and the only reason they're dying is because people are not wearing these N95 masks. So please wear your N95 mask whenever you're in public. Make sure that when you wear the mask, it makes a seal on your face all the way around so that no air can get in. And they have a lot of them have these little metal clip on the top that you can adjust to make sure that no air, because a lot of times the air will sneak in around your nose and stuff. So make sure you wear your mask, and if you have any questions about it, all the masks come with instructions on how you put them on and how to use them and everything. But they don't work if you don't wear them. So whenever you have to wear them whenever you're in public, So please wear your N95 mask so you can save some lives. That's 200 Americans that die every day that don't have to die because people are not wearing the mask. All right, that's my public service announcement. So, all right, thank you for listening. All right, so now we're gonna close it out here. I don't think there's anything else. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye.